I will be reading today for you guys a story called I'm Not Saying It Was Aliens. It was written in October 15th, 2013, and I will have to put out a disclaimer. It's on creepypasta, so there may be a few mistakes that I might read over, and I am so sorry. This all began with a family trip to Las Vegas. The year was 2009, and we decided to go on a little vacation for my 20th birthday. Now that I think about it, why couldn't my parents have just waited a year and made the Las Vegas trip at my 21st birthday? Going to Las Vegas as a 20-year-old is like going to a museum park when you're too short to go on all the good roller coasters. I'm an only child, so was my mother and father. As residents of Southern California, we decided to make the drive out there in our minivan instead of paying for airfare. Not to mention avoiding the horrific experience of the Los Angeles International Airport. Anyone who's made that drive before knows there's not much to look at, nothing but desert and hot asphalt. We stopped in the small town of Baker, California for a little bit of food at a Del Taco that was rated C by the FDA, some ridiculous overpriced gasoline, and a glance at the world's largest thermometer. It happened to be 108 degrees Fahrenheit that day, which was about average for early summer since the town was close to Death Valley. The conversations on the road consisted mainly of my dad and I making Simpsons jokes and references, none of which my mom understood, or my parents talking amongst themselves about family matters that I didn't really care about. I had an old Game Boy with me at that time, so I wasn't completely bored out of my mind while my parents were talking. The total drive time from our house Vegas was about 6.5 hours. We got to the Strip and found our hotel. We were staying at Circus. Not the most luxurious hotel on the trip, but I had no complaints. It was a nice little 4-day, 3-night vacation where we did all the usual Las Vegas kinds of things, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. It was the 3rd day of our vacation and we didn't really have anything planned out for that day. At first we were just going to wander around the Strip and see if anything interesting caught our eye, but my mom had a migraine headache that day, so my dad and I decided to go out on our own and leave the city while she rested. We were both very fascinated by the whole UFO phenomenon, and we knew that the legendary secret base known as Area 51 was about 85 miles north of the city of Las Vegas. So we planned a little adventure to go up that desolate Nevada Highway 375, otherwise known as the Extraterrestrial Highway, and head north. We just planned to look around a little bit and get some pictures at the borderline of the base. I found the concept of a legendary secret hilarious, by the way. We knew that there wasn't really much to see other than signs telling you that this was government property and that they have the right to shoot on sight if you try trespassing. But we felt that alone would be a good photo opportunity and that it would just be cool to be able to say, hey, I've been to Area 51. So we drove for about an hour and a half, seeing literally no traffic, which honestly was a little unsettling, though not unexpected. We got as close to the base as we could, got out of the car, and found that it was exactly as we expected. There was a dirt road that was blocked off with those aforementioned signs on a locked gate. The peculiar thing was that there weren't any fences or walls blocking entry to any of the forbidden areas, just these orange markers sticking out of the ground marking the territory. I guess they just feel that since no one has the balls to go in there, why build a fence? We could see all the equipment they have for spotting curious onlookers such as ourselves. There were strange devices sticking out of the ground that I'm sure are used for things such as detecting oncoming vehicles, thermal surveillance, and all sorts of video cameras. Before we knew it, I noticed that there was a white truck sitting on top of the hill, with 2 men equipped with binoculars inside watching us. I'm sure they were there just to make sure we didn't do anything stupid and to show us that this was serious business. I bet they get people out there like us all the time. Needless to say, we didn't do anything stupid. We just took pictures of ourselves in front of the "We'll shoot on sight" sign, looked around a little bit, and decided to get heading back because it was starting to get dark. The problem was that it shouldn't have been getting dark, and it was getting dark fast, unnaturally fast. When we got to the border of the base, it was about 3 p.m., so we should have had at least 5 hours of light, but it felt like we'd only been there for about 45 minutes. My dad looked at his watch and saw that indeed the watch said it was 3:43 p.m. The only thing wrong with that was that his watch had stopped ticking. We discussed this strange occurrence briefly, but then just decided to get in the car and get going. We got into the van, sat down fast, and fastened our seatbelts. My dad turned the key in the ignition. The engine started fine, however, every electronic component of the car was not functioning. We couldn't get the lights on, the radio wasn't working, and the digital clock face was completely blank. At this point, we were starting to panic. The car was in perfect driving order, but we had no headlights and the sun was quickly dipping below the mountain tops. The decision we made was just to drive as fast as we possibly could for as long as we had visibility. If we got pulled over by the cops, that would be our best case scenario because then we would at least have some help. Getting a speeding ticket, even a big one, would be a small price to pay. We of course thought to try our cell phones, but just like all the electronics in the car, they were completely dead. Let me give you a little recap of our situation. My dad is now driving like a bat out of, going at least 110 miles per hour down a completely abandoned highway in a minivan trying to get back to civilization before the sun disappears below the horizon at what we think is around 3:55 p.m. My dad is completely focused on the road at this point, but I'm starting to see things out the windows to the right side of the car. I don't want to tell him because if he looked, he'd probably flip the van and kill us both. Honestly, I can't tell you what I was seeing. There were streaks of light varying color, things that looked like fireworks imploding instead of exploding in utter silence. Some very large pulsating lights that were just kind of teetering back and forth in the sky, and other things my vocabulary simply cannot convey. These were definitely unidentified flying objects, but not the types of things that I think would constitute any kind of alien spacecraft. It was at this point that another strange occurrence started. The sun that was so quickly disappearing behind the mountains seemed to stop just below the horizon. It was odd. The sun was completely obscured by the mountains, but we could still see its glow behind them. We were in some kind of endless twilight. As strange as it was beneficial to us because at least in this situation we had the visibility to continue moving on and hopefully get back to the city so we could just put crazy cluster fluff behind us. Something else I found comforting was that those strange lights I was seeing earlier had vanished. Our newfound optimism was, however, short-lived. We'd been driving twice the speed limit for over an hour now, but we hadn't seemed to have made any progress. At this rate, we should have at least seen some sort of buildings or other motorists. Actually, when I think about it, at the rate we were going, we should have already reached Vegas. Instead, all we were seeing was the same abandoned highway in an eerie orange tint that we had been looking at this entire time, with no recognizable landmarks for bearings. It's not like we could have made a wrong turn or anything like that either. The entire trip was a straight line. Something was seriously wrong, and we both knew it.